accepting our invitation to share some of your thought and meditation for the Chakra dialogue. It is a great pleasure and indeed an honor to have available with us Professor Nirmal Selvamony with us. This time this is his third talk of our Vishwaneedam Center for Recent Blossoming. I welcome him with all regard and respect. Today, the topic of our discussion is Tirukkuṟaḻ, the Book of Love. We are celebrating Valentine Week, and love is something which is very revolutionary thing involved. And today we will learn the insight of the book and the philosophy of Tirukkuṟaḻ. We welcome Professor Gyanagului, Professor Kumar Giri, our mentor and moderator of today's session, and all viewers who watch this program from Vishwaneedam Center for Asian Blossoming YouTube channel and Socialism Facebook page. Let me give you just a brief introduction to our speakers. For all of us, he is a very well-known person. He is a former professor of English from Central University of Tamil Nadu. He has very deep interest and engagement with indigenous knowledge, literature, poetics, and music. So we are very grateful that he accepted our invitation to share his thought. Vishwaneedam Center for Asian Blossoming is a public intellectual trust, and under this trust we nurture Swadhyasa Chakra weekly dialogue. We organize every Sunday or every Friday, sometimes on Wednesday also. We invite people from different fields of life to share their knowledge and insights and give a kind of culture of dialogue and discussion to learn things deeper and learn intercultural and multicultural aspect of things in a very process of dialogue. We follow the philosophy of Maharishi Aurobindo, Mahatma Gandhi, Chitranjan Das, a creative soul from Orissa, and many around the world. So today is a very interesting topic and very insightful discussion that we expect. So for giving a kind of brief introduction of the topic and the theme, I would like to invite Professor Ananta Giri to kindly give a brief introduction of the topic. So over to you, Ananta.
Thank you so much. Just 1 minute. So thank you so much, dear Randhir. And thank you, dear Professor Nirmal Selvamony. And Randhir has already connected us to the theme to the upcoming Valentine's Day, love. And it is said that Tirukkuṛaḻ is one of the earliest ethical tracts of humanity. Albert Schweitzer, in his book, The Development of Indian Thought, makes a very, very deep reflection on Tirukkuṛaḻ. And there is an intimate connection between love and ethics, because love is giving primacy to the other, what happens to the other. And this is the spirit of Immanuel Levinas also. Levinas, the great philosopher of ethics, he says, to be ethical is always to give priority to the other, to realize that the face of the other's face is not just in front of me, but above me. So it is in that spirit we can read Tirukkuṟaḻ, the ethical dimension in Tirukkuṟaḻ, as a work of love. Of course, the theme of love is deeply challenging. It is multidimensional. We know that how love includes both love and knowledge, both emotion and knowledge. The great contemporary philosopher Jürgen Habermas also wants to bring these three things together, what he calls as cognition, knowledge, and agape, love, and empathy together. So that is the dynamics of human action as communicative action. So Professor Selvamony has suggested a related inviting title called The Love Book or the World Magnet, Tirukkuṛaḻ, magnet. So magnet attracts us, and the calling of life is also to be a magnet. And Tirukkuṛaḻ, the theme of love, it invites continuous parallel border-crossing reflection. For example, it is said that Sri Aurobindo also translated a bit of Tirukkuṛaḻ. So a contemporary journey with Tirukkuṛaḻ also could involve looking at Savitri and Tirukkuṛaḻ together. And Professor Selvamony, as a scholar of literature and literary criticism, philosophy, theology, is really, we are very fortunate to have his co-presence, guidance today in our journey with Tirukkuṛaḻ, ethics and law in this week with the Valentine Day. And the Valentine Day is not just on February 14th, it is a perennial day with her, because every day is a day of ethics and love, and every day is an invitation for us to be a magnet to ourselves, to each other, and to the world. So, Professor Selvamony, please.
Thank you very much, Professor Ananta. First of all, good evening to all of you who are participating in this session. Thanks to Mr. Randhir, Kumar, Gautam, the convener of this event, Mrs. Minati, Pradhan, for organizing this event today. And thanks particularly to Professor Giri for inviting me to speak about Tirukkuṛaḻ this evening in this webinar. Though I'm not a scholar on Tirukkuṛaḻ, I'm a bit familiar with the text, and probably that's why Professor Ananta asked me to talk about this text. It's true that anyone who studies early Tamilology cannot avoid giving sufficient attention to Tirukkuṛaḻ. I know some or many of you participating in this event either do not know Tamil at all or do not know enough to understand Old Tamil. However, I must crave your indulgence when I read out the Tamil couplets or throw in a few Tamil words in my talk. It would surely be helpful, I think, to listen to some key Tamil terms again and again so that they might become part of your own vocabulary. Haven't we welcomed some basic Greek, Latin, and French in our English, no matter what our field of interest is? I'm sure you'd agree with me. So if you're game, here we go. M.S. Purnalingam Pillai, who taught English in Madras Christian College several decades before I entered the same department as a faculty member in 1982, is one of those scholars, Tamil and English, bilingual scholars, who translated Tirukkuṟaḻ into English in pre-independent India. That's probably, early 40s, maybe 42 or so, thereabouts. What he said about this text, which I'm going to talk about tonight, is worth recalling. He said, I'm quoting him, Tirukkuṟaḻ is a world magnet whose power of attraction will not cease as long as this world exists. And unless a greater avatar surprises us, or the world, with a work of transcendent value comprising chapters on democracy, air flight, subterranean or submarine, annihilating engines, etc., modes of warfare, most brutal and barbarous, and those on facilities of production, distribution, and transport, abridging waste of energy, time, and space, on the increase of social amenities at the least cost, ultimately pauperizing the country, which is noted for its plain living, high thinking, hospitality, veracity, and service to fellow men. So that's the long quote from Purnalingam Pillai. I'm sure no such work is probably going to emerge in the near future that can compare with Tirukkuṛaḻ. So a world magnet it is, as Professor Ananta also told you. Today, if you ride the city buses in Chennai, you will probably see Tirukkuṛaḻ verses in the government-run city buses. Or probably you don't see them today. But they were there from 1967 onwards, the year the DMK party came to power in Tamil Nadu. Because Tirukkuṛaḻ is synonymous with Tamil identity. I think that's probably why they wanted it on the buses. Its only rival is Tolkappiyam. But when it comes to popularity, Tirukkuṛaḻ will win hands down. It's easily the most well-known among the 41 classics of the Tamil people. Only about 10% of the people in Chennai, I think, are illiterate. Even they would have heard the name of this classic. And if you want to know what those 41 classics are, Tolkappiyam, of course, and 18 Sangam literature texts called Mel Kanakku, consisting of Pattu Pattu and Ettu Togai, and then 18 texts called Kil Kanakku, then Chilappadigaram, Manimegalai, Muttullayirum, and Irayanar Kalaviyal, totaling 41. And among these, I mentioned the Padinan Kilkanakku 18 texts. So among those 18, we find Tirukkuṛaḻ. Now, this doesn't say anything very much about Tirukkuṛaḻ, because Tirukkuṛaḻ is a life text like Tolkappiyam. If you want to know what those other Kilkanakku texts are, Naladiyar, Nanmani Kadigai, Nanatpadu, which would be Inna Natpadu, Iniyavai Natpadu, Kalavali Natpadu, Kar Natpadu, then Aindinai texts, which would be Aindinai Aimbadu, Aindinai Elubadu, Aindinai Nutaimbadu, sorry, Tinaimale Nutaimbadu, Tinaimale Elubadu. And then Muppal, which is Tirukkuṛaḻ, and Thirigadugam, Achara Kovai, Paramuri, Sirupanjamulam, Mudumari Kanji, Eladi, and Kainilai. Those are the 18 Kilkanakku texts, among which we find Tirukkuṛaḻ. Of these 18, 11 are didactic works. Those are Tirukkuṟaள், Naaladiyar, Nanmanikadigai, Iniyavai 40, Inna 40, Tirikadugam, Sirupanjamulam, Yeladi, Asarakovai, Paramali 400, and Mudumari Kanji. Then there are 6 texts which are based on the love tradition. I mean, Tamil has the earliest grammar for love called Akappurul tradition. So there are 6 texts based on that theme. And there is one more text. So we have 18, such texts which constitute the Tirukkuṟaḻ texts. Of all of these, very definitely Tirukkuṛaḻ stands out as the most well-known and the most profound text. Now, to tell you something about the structure of this text, there are about 1,330 couplets. Tirukkuṛaḻ, the name has 2 words in it, Tiru, which means sacred, and couplets. Kural means couplet. And couplet is the shortest verse form in classical Tamil poetry. The first line consisting of 4 feet and the second line 3 feet. And this text has 3 major divisions, broad divisions. Each one is called a pal or a division. Pal is a Tamil word which means division. So the first division is called Aram, which means ethics or virtuous conduct. And the second division is called Porul, which means the most important things in life. And the third section is called Inbam or happiness. The first section, Aram, has a preface called Pairam. So the first 4 chapters are called the preface. These 4 chapters lay down the foundation of Tirukkuṛaḻ, the entire Tirukkuṛaḻ. The first chapter called Kadavul Valthu or Invocation of God is important because Tirukkuṛaḻ's ethics is based on belief in God. Though it doesn't, specify any one particular God or any one religion. And Tirukkuṛaḻ's Porul, or, if you like to call it political economy, that's also based on belief in God. And the second chapter, Van Chirappu, means praise of rain. And rain is essential for worldly life, as we know. So if there is no rain, there will be scarcity of food, and ultimately, which this will erode ethical values too. So to Tirukkuṛaḻ, water is very important, probably more important than land. And it, of course, has supernatural associations. And the third chapter is called Nitar Chirappu, or the greatness of those who live for others and are kind to all the creatures of the world. And the fourth chapter is Aram Valiyuruttal, or the importance of ethics. Now, in the first division, after this Pairam, or the introductory chapters, the first section is called Illaraviyal, or the chapters on home life. So chapters 5 to 24 or constitute these, they talk about home life or the ethics of home life, if you like. And chapters 25 to 38 talk about renunciation. And the second section, Porul, or important matters, has 3 divisions within itself. The first is Arasial, or chapters on kingship, chapters 39 to 63. And then we have the chapters on the organs of an administered territory, like ministers, council, the assembly, messengers, and so on. the army, etc. So chapters 64 to 95, talk about these various organs of the administration. And then the remaining chapters from 96 to 108, they are called Varibiyal, or means the remaining chapters on various matters pertaining to Porul. And the third section is Inbam, or happiness, and it has two subdivisions. The first is about premarital life, and the second is about marital life. So this is the broad structure of Tirukkuṟaḻ. It was first printed in 1812, but before it got printed, it was translated into European languages like Italian, English, from the 18th century onwards. And it has attracted commentaries. This World Magnet has attracted commentaries even from the pre-print era, from the 10th century onwards. From 19th century onwards, in the print era, we have many commentaries. Tirukkuṛaḻ is, described by several epithets, like Vayurai Valthu, or exhortation or counsel, Poyyamuri, or truthful words, or Tamil Marai, or the Tamil scripture. It's also called Muppal, or the three divisions. And it's also called Podumarai, which means the common scripture. Common scripture because it is not the scripture of any one religion as such. So Tirukkuṛaḻ is Podumarai because it's universal in nature. It is neither Jain, nor Buddhist, nor Saivite, nor Christian, though ideas pertaining to all of these and probably many more could be found in it. M.S. Purnalingam Pillai, I quoted from, comments on the attempts on the parts of scholars to appropriate Tirukkuṛaḻ in various ways and label it as Hindu or Buddhist or Jaina or Saivite or whatever. I would like to quote Purnalingam Pillai, on this matter. Quite a long quote. But it's difficult for the commentators and translators to get over the influence or bias of their heredity and environment. The Vedantists, the Siddhantists, the Buddhist, the Jain, the Christian, these men quite unconsciously interpret the couplets according to their national or cultural bias. The Vedantists will find Varnashrama Dharma in plain distiches and make out Andanar as Brahmin, despite the definition given by the poet himself in the poem, and the explicit mention of Andanar and Parpar of Tolkappiyam as the names of two separate orders of Tamilians with distinctive functions for each in society. The Saiva Siddhantist quotes the first couplet of the very first chapter in support of his contention. The Buddhist and the Jaina refer to the condemnation of slaughter and flesh diet and to the worship of gurus or great men rather than God. The Christian gloats on the probability of Valluva having heard Jesus Christ's Sermon on the Mount, and so on. So that's a long quote from Purnalingam Pillai. Now, Tirukkuṛaḻ does speak of global textual traditions. It has a phrase which goes, Ulagattu eppal nulor, which means whichever textual authors of the world. So that is directly from Tirukkuṛaḻ. Now, Parimelagar, which is one of the well-known, most, often read commentator called Parimelagar, he said that Tirukkuṛaḻ borrowed from several sources, but used them in such a way that they are acceptable to all. Though Tirukkuṛaḻ is named Podumarai, it is not a religious scripture. I have already argued that all classical religions of the world originally originated from what I call ex-homing, or abandoning home. Home is one of the meanings of the Tamil word Thinai. The members of such a home are not only humans, but also beings other than humans, especially a family tree and the ancestors. All founders of religions left their homes to find the truth, which to them lay outside of home. But I've tried to show that the home or Tinai is the truth. Major religions try to establish the truth by breaking the home, especially at the present time called the Anthropocene, when rehoming is the urgent need of all beings. Our hope does not come from religions, but from Tinai and from home affirmers. In this regard, Tirukkuṟaḻ is a great home-affirming world classic. Joanne Punzo Waghorn expressed in 2004 the view that Tirukkuṟaḻ is ethics addressed to a householder. Some of us may think that this text privileges renunciation over home life, but this is highly disputable. A. Gopalakrishnan in 2012 argued that Tirukkuṟaḻ's Turavaram or renunciation is meant for the familial persons, not for ascetics, and how the householders could practice renunciation in domestic life itself. Though Tirukkuṟaḻ speaks of political strategies, none of those strategies can be found unethical because its politics is ethical. This is endorsed by several scholars. While the ethical texts of Tirukkuṟaḻ's time were caste-based and stipulated the conduct which was appropriate to each caste, this Tamil text stipulated universal ethics. Now, if this is not a religious text, is it a philosophical one? It not only mentions the ancient Tamil word for philosophy, namely Kaatchi, but it itself is a text of Kaatchi. In other words, it is a philosophical text. But of this, I can expatiate on another occasion and not now, I'm afraid. Though this text emerged in the Tamil state society, which privileged agriculture over foraging, and as other elements of the state, it still continues the pre-state Tamil traditions. Of these pre-state or Tinai traditions, the most important one is the theory of Muppal, or the three divisions, about which I said something earlier. This theory constitutes the very framework of the text. Now, what is this framework? Muppal means the three divisions, which are actually the ultimate ends of life. Aram, or ethics, Porul, or that which is most important for everyday life, and Inbam, or happiness. Tirukkuṟaḻ does not consider Vidu, or liberation, as one of the ultimate ends of life. In this regard, it differs radically not only from the Sanskritic concept of Purusharthas, but also from all Tamil Bhakti literature. Now let us consider Aram, or virtuous conduct. We find a definition in a couplet. It goes, being ethical is having a pure heart. All else about being ethical is empty noise. Now, Aram, or ethicality, if you like, is inseparable from Inbam, or happiness also. The following couplet says that. Happiness ensues only from virtuous conduct. All else is not such and not reputable too. It is inseparable from Porul, or substantiality also. Consider these couplets. Is there anything more gainful than virtuous conduct that brings excellence and wealth to all lives? And this one, wealth gotten sensitively by fair means will nurture virtue and give happiness. And also this one, wealth not acquired with grace and love, the world will not touch but cast off. Now, even if others do evil to you, you must do aram, or good. The couplet that says this may be translated this way, and this is Purnalingam Pillai's translation. The others that I gave you were mine. Though others do us no good, it is good that we feel keenly for their ill deed and do no vicious action in return. Now, this is comparable to another couplet which goes in Tamil, Inna Chaidare Uruttal Avarnana Nannayam Chaidu Vidal. Meaning, you should always return good for evil. I mean, that's the only way to shame the evildoers. And in another couplet, the author asks us a question. He challenges us. Says, Inna Seidarkum Iniyave Chayyakal Yenna Payattado Chalbu. That is, what is sagely perfection worth if it does not do good to even evildoers? So that's M.S. Purnalingam Pillai's translation. There are several things which are not aram, like backbiting or covetousness, envy, infidelity, baseness, and several others, which Tirukkuṟaḻ talks about. But examples of aram could be anbudaiமை or loving, arulvudamai or being graceful, sandranmai or nobility, panbudaiமை or being good-natured, and so on. Now look at the way Tirukkuṛaḻ defines kingship. Aran இழுக்காது அல்லவை நீக்கி மரண் இழுக்கா மானம் உடையது அரசு. Its translation might be, a king is he who fails not in virtue, eschews vice, lacks not courage, and keeps up humor. Now, Aram is the criterion for choosing the elders who will be sitting in the assemblies, and the ministers, and all of the administrators for governance. Unlike, caste-based dharma, which is a kind of contingent rationale for one's station in life, Aram is universal. One of the couplets says, do not say Aram consists in one bearing the palanquin and another riding it. As Tirukkuṛaḻ has already said in another couplet that all lives are equal by birth, it does not say that some are born to labor while others simply enjoy the fruits of the labor of the others. It's the circumstances which are responsible for social and class distinctions. They have nothing to do with Aram as such. Now, Aram should be the basis of every action, including public speech also. Couplet which says this can be translated this way, and Purnalingam Pillai does it this way. Weigh each word and speak. Better than that is neither virtue nor sense. Arattupal, or the division of Aram, is said to be divided into two parts, as I told you earlier. Illaram, or home ethics, and Thuravaram, or renunciatory ethics. This division does not strictly apply to the text. I say this because several topics put under renunciatory ethics might as well come under home ethics too. Now to tell you something about the second ultimate end, which is Porul. It has several meanings. I'll just take a few and deliberate on them. One is wealth. For example, this couplet, which says, inherited wealth, wealth from tax, and mulct from foes are the king's wealth. So here, Porul is literally wealth as such. It's not really the ultimate end as such. But Porul can also mean the means or wherewithal to practice virtues like compassion. So this particular Kuril, which reads, Arulennum anbeen kuழவி, பொருளென்னும் செல்வச் செல்வியால் உண்டு. That can be translated. Grace, the child of love, exists because it is fostered by wealth. Now, Porul can also mean it can also mean significance. A Kuril which endorses this meaning is this. The philosophers will not speak insignificant words even forgetfully. To say this, Gwalior uses the term பொருள் தீர்ந்த, meaning not having any meaning or significance. Porul can also mean importance or substantiality or value, which makes life worthy. Porul allavai porul, sorry, I'll say that again. Porul allavarai porulaga seyyum, porul alladu illai porul. Now that can be translated. There is nothing like wealth that can make a man of no consequence a man of worth. So here, worth, is the meaning of the word porul, importance, value, etc. So Tirukkuṛaḻ uses porul in different senses, of course. So as an ultimate end, porul does not refer to wealth alone. It refers to substantiality or importance or worth or value. Porul is necessary for home life, of course, which makes home life worthy. A very famous Tirukkuṛaḻ is this. In many wedding wishes, people use this couplet almost every day. Anbum aranum udaithayin ilvaalkai, panbum payanum adu. That can be Purnalingam play translates that this way. If love and virtue govern the household, it will be its fine quality and fruit. So wealth is means to love and being ethical in home life. The wealth a family finds enables it to sustain and nurture itself so that it can love and live ethically, which involves hospitality to guests and giving alms to the poor. And porul is necessary for community life too. The king's primary duty is to acquire, guard, and distribute wealth. Now, wealth is found in order to govern lovingly, virtuously, and to make all those who live in his territory happy. And the third ultimate end is inbam or happiness. It has two important meanings. One is inimai or sweetness or enjoyment. And here's a kural which supports that meaning. As the man who eats little less than what he needs enjoys his food, the beastly glutton who gorges falls sick. So enjoyment, it is in that sense that inbam, the word is inbam is used in this particular couplet, which I'm trying to translate for you. And the second important meaning is happiness. So, inbam idayaradu indum, avavennum tunbathul tumbam kedin. That can be translated. If intense desire, the affliction of afflictions, is eradicated, pleasure will surge unceasingly. Now, inbam is not something that could be desired by us. He who does not desire happiness while he is happy does not feel unhappiness while he is unhappy. So that is a couplet which endorses this idea that, inbam comes on its own. You don't desire it as such. If one ought to be happy, one ought to overcome desire. Inbam idayaradu indum, avavennum tunbathul tumbam kedin. So which I translated that for you already. If intense desire, the affliction of afflictions, is eradicated, pleasure will surge unceasingly. Now to say something about what Tirukkuṛaḻ is really trying to say. What is it about? What is the goal of writing Tirukkuṛaḻ? Or what should the reader get out of it? What's its primary message as such? If I should put it in a phrase, I would say it is Vaiyatthul Vazhvangu Vazhdal, which means living as you should live in this world. The context of this particular phrase is home life. It is from a couplet which, talks about home life, that I have taken this phrase. but one has to live outside of one's home also. And life, as we know, is full of challenges. When faced with obstacles, Tirukkuṟaḻ encourages us to overcome the obstacles with determination, like how a bull will draw a cart uphill. Now, I'm trying to kind of paraphrase a couplet for you. It also recommends humor to face the obstacles in life. Life is also challenged by forces that break relationship, which brings sorrow. One needs to overpower such a force to resume normal relationships. It's a kind of noi or disease because it disrupts healthy relationships. And noi is, or disease, is suffering also, which is disruptive, a kind of pagai or enmity. The worst form is internal enmity within family, within our communities. The spiritual material force that binds all members of a community, small or large, could only be one thing, only one thing, and that is love, about which Professor Ananta said some important ideas, citing Emmanuel Levinas, in his introductory remarks. So my thesis for tonight is this. The basis of Mopal, or the triadic ultimate ends of Tirukkuṛaḻ, is love. Now, what is love? Remember when we talked about Jesus Christ on the Christmas day, we said something about love, but you will find some similar ideas in Tirukkuṛaḻ also. I'd just like to share a few general features with you. Love, or anbu, the Tamil word for love, is the basic nature of all life. Without love, one is as good as dead. A Kural which has this idea can be translated this way. If you do not have love in your heart, you are as good as dead tree in a desert. Tiruvallur speaks of love as the most important internal organ in our body. Without this organ, all the other organs are useless. He says, Anbin variyadu uyirnilai, which means life follows the course of love. Life is the soul of human beings. It characterizes not only humans, but also all life forms. The noble conventions of everyday life called varakku are also based on love. In fact, it can be a synonym of love also sometimes. Anbu is a spontaneous quality that cannot be locked up. This means love wells up on its own in the hearts of all beings, not just humans, but it's up to us to channelize it properly. The spontaneity of love is evident in our capacity to empathize, show compassion, and share grief with others. This is why our eyes become tearful when we see others suffer. From Anbu stem all good qualities. Arul or kindness or grace, Kannotam or compassion, Sandranme or nobility, and Panbudaime or good nature. Ka Apadurai sees love as a divine quality like Arul or grace and Inbam or happiness. If Aram is the body, love is the life principle which makes the body dynamic. He says it takes root as Kadal or sexual passion and sexual life and grows skyward as Pasam or affection, spreading branches of Panbu or character, producing sprouts of Salbu or nobility, flowers as Arul or grace, and fruits of Perinbam or divine love. It's a kind of alchemy which transforms destructive power into creative one. Love is the basis of home life as well as the life of renunciation and even for combating opposition due to its intimate connection with Aram or ethics. Secondly, love engenders community also. When one is isolated, love does not grow in that individual, but it's love that makes one seek community. More than one commentator has defined love as a kind of feeling one has for those closely related to oneself. To Parimelalahar, from whom I cited earlier, It is kadal, or for wife and children. To Pulavar Kurandai, another commentator, anbu or love is pattu or kadal for relatives. To Manakkudavar, the earliest known Tirukkuṟaḻ commentator of 10th century, anbu or love is kadal for one's dependents. To some scholars, it's a feeling for the family and also for friends. Devanaya Pavana has an interesting idea about love. He says, only parents with children will be able to love others, like the guests, ascetics, and the poor. To Lekwanar, who translated Tolgapiyam into English and wrote extensive notes to it, said love extends to all living beings, not just humans. And thirdly, love is the basic quality of the noble persons of the community. In the chapter on Sandanme or nobility, Valluvar has 10 couplets, of which, this one is a most important one, I think, in my opinion. So that reads, Anbu, Naan, Oppuravu, Kannottam, Vaimai, Aindu, Chalbu, Undriya, Thungu. It can be translated this way, I guess. Love, fear of shameful deeds, equity, compassion, and truthfulness are the 5 pillars on which nobility rests. Only anbu or love makes one a sandron or a noble person. Such a person is also a whole person, because salbu means wholeness. As salbu is wholeness, sandon is one who is marked by wholeness. The strength of a sandon lies in his or her humility. Elsewhere, we read, Paniyumam endrum perumai chirumai, Aniyumam tannai viyandu. The great will always humble themselves, but the mean will exalt themselves in self-admiration. The strength of Sandon, or the noble person, does not lie in victory, but in embracing defeat gracefully, even at the hands of inferiors. Not just inferiors, even enemies. Here, love expresses itself in the form of returning enmity with good. As Sandon sees defeat, enmity, and loss quite differently from those that are not whole persons. If loss is lack or poverty, what Tirukkuṟaḻ calls inmai, or non-being, is usually considered disgraceful. While talking about begging, Tirukkuṟaḻ describes it as the most deplorable thing in the world. But inmai to a Sandon or a noble person is not disgrace at all, because the latter's wholeness enables him or her to regard it differently than the others who are not whole beings. Tirukkuṟaḻ defines Sandon and the king this way because it is painting everything with the brush of love. Fourthly, love is not only the basis of ethics, it is also the basis for dealing with the unethical. And fifthly, love is selflessness. The best life is a life of love, which is expressed in giving away one's porul, wealth, and ultimately oneself. Strangely, many commentators to Tirukkuṟaḻ miss out this key aspect of love, which Tiruvallur himself has expressed so dramatically in his couplet. Anbilar ellam tamakkuriyar, anbudayar endrum uriyar, enbum uriyar pirarku. Which in Pillai's translation reads, the loveless are selfish and have all to themselves. The loving ones sacrifice even the bones of their body for the others. Tirukkuṟaḻ echoes the earlier Tamil sages who exhorted people to live for others selflessly. In our own times, the late Tamil scholar M.L. Thangappa summarized this idea in a phrase which in Tamil reads, Koduttale Vaalkai, which means life is nothing but giving away. Tirukkuṟaḻ has separate chapters on different types of giving away. ஈகை or alms, Oppuravu, or giving away in order to achieve equity in community, and Virundombal, or hospitality. When one gives up oneself for the sake of the others, love becomes even tavam, or penance. In Tirukkuṟaḻ, or in the renunciatory section, the chapter on tavam or penance expresses love this way. All other lives worship him who leads an unselfish life. So, selflessness leads to desirelessness also. And persons who have given up desire are the ones who are praised in the preface of Tirukkuṛaḻ. Giving up desire is real renunciation. If selflessness is the characteristic trait of love, one of its manifestations is humility, which is the real strength of the noble person or Sandom, and also the king. Now let's see how love is related to aram, or ethics. So far I told you some general characteristics of love, and now we'll see how love applies in the three major divisions of Tirukkuṛaḻ. Love is, of course, the basis for aram, or virtuous conduct. Those life forms without love are destroyed by the deity of aram, or ethics. Just like the hot sun destroys boneless creatures, the god of aram destroys those without love. When one's actions and interactions with others are loveless or hateful, one practically becomes dead. And what kills such a person is aram, or ethics. For example, a thief is socially dead, like a worm burnt by the heat of the sun, because his unethical actions isolate him and make him unsocial. Those who do not know anything other than robbery will perish due to their unethical deeds, says one couplet. Such ethics, I think, is radically different from that of Arthasastra or Machiavelli's The Prince, which Professor Giri has studied, I think, extensively. And these texts, as you know, recommend strategies that are either unethical or ethically neutral, I think, to achieve one's ends. The ethics of Tirukkuṛaḻ, unlike them, demands returning good for evil. Even if others do evil, feeling sorry for their future suffering for what they do now, it is good not to do anything but good to them. It should be noted that it is love which makes one empathize with others. If one cannot empathize, one's knowledge is of no avail. I recall what Professor Giri said earlier, how he connected love with knowledge. Walluvar poses the question, Arivinan avadu undo, piridin noi tannoi bol potrakkadai. What gain will wisdom fetch if one will not pay heed to the sufferings of others as he does to his own? Now, that is Purnalingam Pillai's translation of the couplet. Another couplet reads, Inna seidare oruttu, Inna seidare oruttal, avarnana nannayam seidu vidal. To punish wrongdoers is to do them great good, and then make them feel ashamed of their action. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Now I heard some sounds. I was wondering whether something wrong was happening. Okay, thank you. It's love which endows a person with philosophical vision and character, which expresses itself in the form of kind words. We have already discussed the affinity between love and grace, or arul. Love is the mother of arul, the child whose foster mother is porul, or substantiality. Arulennum anbeen kulavi, porulennum selvat seviliyal undu. Translated, grace, the child eaten by love, is reared by wealth, called the cherishing nurse. That's Pillai's translation. Arul is the child of Anbu raised by Porul, the foster mother. If Anbu is a kind of relation between one's familiar universe, Arul is a similar relation with those outside the purview of such universe also. If there is no Porul, Arul or compassion, the child of love, cannot be nurtured. If compassion is begotten by the mother of, namely love, the child compassion is raised only by Porul. So how does Porul groom compassion? What the couplet means is this, I think. In order to show compassion to others, we need Porul, or the means to show it. You need to have something in order to share it with others, don't you? Now let's see how love figures in the section on Porul, which is the second. Anbudaimai, Andre Kudipirattal, Ivirandum Panbudaimai Ennum Vazhakku. So the translation might read, love and noble birth, these two form the habit of good conduct. So those who form part of the administrative team of a country should have love in them. Only he is trustworthy who is endowed with love, knowledge, sobriety, and non-covetousness. When a king entrusts responsible tasks to an officer, the first thing he looks for is love. Love for the king indeed. Without love, the officer is not likely to carry out the task ethically and truthfully. Anbu is necessary to overcome one's foe also. How can he who is unloving, destitute of powerful aids, and himself without strength to overcome the might of his foe, ever overcome his foe? Note how love is necessary even to overcome one's foe, to resist opposition. Love is also, the basis of Porul or wealth. Love has to be the basis of economy also. Arulodum anbodum vara porulakum pullar puralavidal. Relinquish the wealth made without kindness and love. Porul has to be found ethically so that economy does not disrupt love among people. Porul created or acquired by breaking the love among people will be appropriated by others. Porul is also the means to do good. Those who do evil without compassion are those that lack the wherewithal and resoluteness to do good. The highest good is giving one's resources and oneself for the well-being of the others. But if one is not in a position to do so, one lapses into evil. For example, if the doctor tells me that I cannot donate blood to a needy person because my blood pressure is higher than what it should be, my blood pressure prevents me from doing good. But why is my blood pressure high? Why is my physical condition bad? Probably because of the stress from an unhealthy lifestyle. My bad lifestyle prevents me from doing good. It's also true that I'm not able to do good because neither do I have the means to do good, nor the resoluteness required to do it. So it's clear that we need the wherewithal to do good and to show compassion to others. The wherewithal is nothing but Porul. Look at the king of the country. He also has to be loving. While creating, acquiring, guarding, and distributing wealth, he ought to follow ethical means. And this is why Tirukkuṟaள் says, Aranilukka allavai nikki, Maranilukka manam udayadu arasu. Without swerving from ethics and valor, the king removes evil in order to establish the dignity of kingship. As a quality of the king, maram or valor does not mean evil deed. If it does, there is no point in saying love is the basis not only of aram or ethicality, but maram or valor also. One does not expect Tirukkuṟaள் to say that love is the basis of evil deed. The persona that exemplifies the truth that love is the basis of valor also is the king. This is particularly evident in the king's duty, namely punishment of evil. The king guards his kudi, or the extended family called Nadu, and cares for it, and also punishes their misdeeds. These are his duties, not faults. If necessary, he could even take the life of the worst criminal, which is similar to weeding a field in a crop. Such governance is called murai, which consists in deliberation, impartiality, and weighing the pros and cons of issues. The ruler of the community and governance should facilitate loving relationship among people. This requires the ruler should love the administrators and people. If a ruler claims to love an administrator or skilled worker who is ill-equipped to carry out the task, such love cannot be true love. It can only be favoritism or nepotism. I've tried to show how love underlies all aspects of Tirukkuṟaḻ, Tirukkuṛaḻ itself. But one may wonder how love could be the basis of Tirukkuṛaḻ if it describes a state society. This is an important question. But this question presumes that Tirukkuṛaḻ describes a state society. Does it? Apparently, the administrative structure in Tirukkuṛaḻ resembles that of a state. But from the way it constitutes, its structure, components like kingship, messenger, elders, and so on, we learn that these are quite unlike those of a normative state. Though these are nodes of power in the administration, they are characterized by love or qualities related to love, making them anomalies rather than true examples of the state machinery. Probably what we see in Tirukkuṛaḻ is not really a state, for the simple reason that no state can be founded on love. And love in Inbathupal, or the section, the division on happiness. In fact, love is the basis of heterosexual love itself, especially in premarital life. The male lover says about the love between him and his beloved in this couplet this way. Love, like the kinship between body and soul, is the love between this maid and myself. The female lover, on her part, speaks to a confidante or her best friend, this. So this is a couplet. The embrace that fills me with comfort and gladness is capable of enduring my former sorrow and meditating on his want of love. It is the intense sorrow which makes her portray her male lover as a loveless person. Does she really mean it? The word anbinmai, or lack of love, does not mean complete absence of love in this context, but the lack of manifestation of love. So love in heterosexual life is a crucial element throughout the Inbathupal. In marital life also, it plays a key role. And it's treated elaborately by the author, not only in this section, but also in the first division, Arathupal. In one of the chapters in Arathupal, he talks about Anbudame, or loving, Ilvalke, or home life, Valke Thunainalam, or about the wife, and Makkal Peru, or the children, the boon of the home, and Virundombal, or hospitality. The three ultimate ends constitute the framework of Tirukkuṛaḻ, as I have shown to you elaborately. But what binds the three ends is love, the fifth fundamental force, beyond the four fundamental forces that modern physics has taught us about. So it is this fifth fundamental force, what M.S. Purnalingam Pillai called this world magnet. I hope will continue to attract everyone as long as this universe lasts. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Nirmal. It is a very enriching journey. So multidimensional, different aspects of love, household, home, ethics, politics, state. All these are very deep challenges of the human condition. So thank you. And now let us join Professor Selvamony in thinking together. So question, comments, and reflections, please. Luigi, please.
Thank you, Professor Ananta.
So, Gianluigi.
Yes, yes. Well, I thank you very much for the brilliant exposition and for the interpretation. I found everything very interesting. Well, I would like perhaps ask a question about the problem of the evil. That is there in the text a description or an interpretation about how evil is possible, how evil happens? That is why evil is here. This is the question which I would like to ask. That is, I see that there is a program of formation of education of the individual. I would be interested in how the text explains the presence of evil in the world. And well, connected to this, if I am not mistaken, if I have correctly heard, there is the idea that life is full of challenges, and therefore I would like to ask whether in a certain sense it can be spoken of the program of the text towards the ethical education as a kind of implanting a second nature in the individual, so that the individual is ready in advance to contrast the challenges of life. That is, this ethical program is a kind of sort of mental, psychic, and educational gymnastics, so that we are ready before the challenges of the life hits us, to contrast in an opportune way, in an appropriate way, the challenges of life themselves. So these are the two aspects of my question. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Should I answer that now, Professor Ananta?
Maybe we can gather a few more fruits together. So we have Dr. Syed, please. Dr. Syed. Then Dr. Vijaya Sarathi, please. Okay, Sudhirji, please. Sudhir. Okay, now Minati.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes.
Yeah. Good evening, everyone. First, I would like to thank Professor Nirmal Selvamony for his very insightful deliberation. It was very enlightening. I have just two basic questions. One is, as we all know, Tirukkuṟaḻ is a philosophical text. I mean, my query is, do people follow Tirukkuṛaḻ in their day-to-day life nowadays? I mean, in this present scenario. Then the second question is, what does Tirukkuṛaḻ say about the true love? True love has an oxymoron, the paradox to it. She just grow in a state of suffocating togetherness. I mean, if you tell in one line, it is, how does the physics of distance and chemistry of togetherness work? And one more, another very basic question about Tamil. What is the difference between Ambu and Kadal? Ambu is a wider sense and Kadal is a, little narrow sense. These three were my queries. And thank you for the opportunity.
Can you say that again? I didn't get that clearly. First question was, what is true love, right?
First question I was asking, as being a philosophical text, do people really follow Tirukkuṛaḻ in their day-to-day life?
Okay.
And that is what, that true love, what does it say about the physics of distance and chemistry of togetherness?
Okay.
And the third thing, I was asking the difference between Ambu and Kadal. So that is my very
between what?
Anbu and Kadal.
Okay, great. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, because thank you.
Yeah.
So thank you, Minati. So now we have Sudhir, please. Sudhirji. Sudhir bhai.
Yes, Anand. Namaskar.
Lovely.
As always, your programs are very educative, very positive, and very well done. So is this one. Having lived myself in Tamil Nadu for about 5.5 years, almost 6 years, I am aware of the importance of Tirukkuṛaḻ, and indeed, it is a book worth studying and experiencing, I would say. I didn't have the chance so far, but today I am again with the decision that let me get it and read it. And I have heard a lot about its content and all that. And I'm aware about it's being a book that can guide a life. And that's very important. And with this experience, you have brought that important treatise to another part of the world, another set of people who need to know about it. And I think such things need to be brought more to the knowledge of people. I thank you very much for this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sudhir bhai. So, Poojaji, please. Okay, and Shankar Dravidji. Okay, so maybe one or
good evening.
Please, good evening.
हाँ जी, मुझे बहुत अच्छा लगा। सेल्वमणि ने बहुत अच्छा इंग्लिश में और तमिल में समझाया है, और मुझे भी तिरुकुறள் के ऊपर बहुत एक लगन है। हेलो,
Yes, we can hear you, please.
बॉम्बे में 1994 से गवर्नमेंट से फाइट करके 7 साल के बाद संत तिरुवल्लुवर चौक हमने बनाया है। अगर आप देखना चाहेंगे तो मैं फोटो बता सकता हूँ, अभी देखना चाहेंगे?
हाँ, जरूर।
ये है संत तिरुवल्लुवर चौक, देखें?
हाँ,
उसके ऊपर एक कुरल है, वो कुरल हमने 4 लैंग्वेज में ट्रांसलेट किया है। वो कुरल ये है, அன்பிலார் எல்லாம் தமக்குரியர் அன்புடையர் என்பும் உரியர் பிறருக்கு। इसका मीनिंग वो है, जिसके अंदर प्यार है वो पूरा शरीर भी समाज के लिए समझकर जीता है, जिसके अंदर प्यार नहीं है वो पूरा दुनिया की धन मेरा हो जाना चाहिए ऐसा जीता है। तिरुवल्लुवर एक 2000 साल पहले एक ग्रेट, पूरा उनका जो तिरुकुறள் है पूरा जगत के सभी मानव पढ़ सकते हैं। वो गीता, कुरान, बाइबल इससे कंप्लीट डिफरेंट है। वो ओनली ह्यूमन बीइंग के ऊपर तिरुकुறள் है, और हम पिछले 31 साल से ह्यूमनिस्ट मूवमेंट का जो फाउंडर है सीलो, उसका थॉट सब हमने देखा, तो दूसरा एक तिरुवल्लुवर जन्म हो गया ऐसा मैं समझकर मैं जी रहा हूँ अभी। धन्यवाद।
Thank you.
आप सभी
maybe-
को
हाँ,
आप सभी को शांति, शक्ति और आनंद मिले, इसके लिए हम प्रयास करते हैं। धन्यवाद।
Thank you.
Giri, can you translate that for me?
He
Yes,
said,
so, please.
we wish peace, force, and joy to all of you, and we are working for that as humanists.
Thank you. And also what he said earlier in Hindi.
He said that he has sort of struggled and fought with the government at Bombay and set up a Saint Tiruvallur Chowk, a crossing,
Oh, yeah.
where he has
Great.
put up a statue, and he has put one of the Kurals in 4 languages.
Yeah, I heard him quote that Kural. Yeah. Thank you so much.
You're welcome, sir.
Yeah. You're wonderful.
Shankar and I are members of the humanist movement, and we work in 150 countries as volunteers for simultaneous social and personal transformation. The other thing he said that when he read Silo, who founded the humanist movement, he felt as if another saint of Tiruvallur like has come to the world.
Wow.
So thank you. But maybe one connecting thought here is that, as Shankar mentioned, that Tirukkuṛaḻ is mainly about human beings. But the early Tirukkuṛaḻs, the first lines also talk about God, Lord, touching the feet of the Lord. Of course, these are open journeys. It is not necessarily theological. But my submission is that there is a transcendental dimension in Tirukkuṛaḻ. No, it is not just human in a limited sense. And I request your reflection. And a few related quick queries are, it is very important about home and renunciation. And how home ethics and ethics of renunciation. And Professor Selvamony is saying how they are intermingled. And the wider significance of that is that many of the Indian traditions understood very broadly. Now there is not a polarity between home and renunciation, householder or the renouncer. So therefore, and in a deeply spiritual sense, like when we read or realize Sri Aurobindo or Gandhi, even Tagore, renunciation is not just renouncing the home in an external sense, but it is really following renunciation as a way of life, not being attached, not being too attached to possessive, what is called inner renunciation, or what I've called as practical renunciation. Just to understand that the theme of renunciation has realized it is not just the position of the householder or the renouncer. And your reading of Tirukkuṛaḻ as the religion of the home is very interesting. That home, that sense of the home.
Hello. I think Ananta bhai, he's not there in the forum. I think he lost
Yeah,
his connection.
can't hear you.
Yeah. Randhir, if you have anything to ask, you can please ask.
No, I don't have any such question. I'm just waiting for his answer or his response of these queries. Yes, Professor Nirmal
Yeah,
Selvamony.
thank you. So thank you so much for your observations, comments, and questions. The first question was about evil. Yes, I think I mentioned it passingly, though I didn't focus on evil as such. In fact, in Illaravial, or in the subsection within the first division, Aram, there is a entire chapter of 10 couplets on Tivine Acham, or on the fear of evil deeds. I mean, it's just one chapter, but there are so many couplets. There are totally 1,330, but there are so many in Tirukkuṟaḻ which really talk about evil in different ways. One of these couplets in this section, in this subsection, Tivine Acham, or the fear of evil, says, Tiyavai Tiya Payattalaal, Tiyavai Tiyinum Anjapadum, which can be translated this way, I think, because evil produces evil. Evil should be feared more than fire. Tiya Payattalal, meaning like evil ultimately will result in evil. You know, that's why we need to avoid it. I mean, talking about the consequence of action. Now, I said the framework of Tirukkuṛaḻ, you know, the three ultimate ends, Aram, Porul, and Inbam. So generally, Tirukkuṛaḻ is in perfect agreement with the earlier grammatical text called Tolgapiyam, both of which, you know, would say that all our actions should be oriented towards the ultimate ends. So if your action is oriented towards the ultimate end, all of these three ends, that is ethicality, substantiality, and happiness, and all these three are rooted in love, your action ought to be virtuous. It cannot be evil. So I think that's just one thought on this, because you can do a whole paper on this, I think, presentation on it, but just to stimulate your thought, you know, I just said that. So if, I mean, that's not a sufficient answer, we can talk about it more. Now, another question was, what is true love, and do people really follow Tirukkuṛaḻ? Who follows? I don't know. Like, you know, sometimes you see goodness here and there, good actions here and there, and that's it. But, well, we are living in an entirely different world, you know, not the world that Tirukkuṛaḻ envisages, I think. Far from that. You know, everywhere you see, you know, you talk about corruption index and this and that, you know, we are living in such a terrible world. You know, we are living in the Anthropocene, the time when humans have had the greatest impact on this planet and made it unlivable, not only for humans, but for all of the other life forms. So what do you expect in this world today? I mean, Tamil Nadu is also part of this world. The place from where Tirukkuṛaḻ came is situated right there in that Anthropocenic world. So what do you expect? I mean, I'm also kind of hoping that we will have a world which Tiruvallur was dreaming of, or what he's talking about. And the difference between, I mean, true love, of course, I mean, the entire Tirukkuṛaḻ is talking about love. That's what I was trying to tell you today. But I think the most important aspect for me is this selflessness, which I emphasized. So you need to really make space for the other. I mean, Ananta was also talking about the other. So only if you make space for the other can you experience love. So that, I think, is true love. And I'm just reminded of Shakespeare here in a sonnet, he says, "Let me not to the marriage of true minds admit impediments." So I'm also like probably saying the same thing. I'm wishing that we find these true minds which are really selfless. Anbu, is the Tamil word for love, whereas kadal is one aspect of that love. Kadal is particularly used in the context of heterosexual love, or maybe, in other contexts too, but it's basically sexual love, kadal. That's how it is used largely in modern Tamil. But you might find in ancient sources other uses of kadal also, meanings of kadal, but generally today, I think in the modern times, kadal, is more a kind of a restricted sense than anbu. Anbu is a very, generic word, and it's could be a direct translation of what you call agape in Greek, probably. That's closer, not eros or philos or whatever, but agape, if you like. A kind of love in which there is a kenotic element of the selfless element. Professor Ananta was talking about the polarity between home and renunciation. Yeah, I'm fully aware of that idea. What I'm trying, to say that is the major religions, originated by walking out of home. That's the point that I was making. But otherwise, renunciation is, according to Tirukkuṟaḻ, basically desirelessness. The Tamil word is avavinmai. Okay, getting rid of your desire. So that is true renunciation. And definitely there is no polarity between that and Tinai, or what I call home. Home, which is the bonding of the human family and, beings other than human. And definitely, there is the transcendental dimension in love, because it's not something that, humans can rationalize and completely, scientifically or technologically sort of manipulate in any way. It's out there, and in later texts, love is also identified with God, though Tirukkuṛaḻ does not really say that explicitly. In a text like Tirumandiram, Tirumula would say Anbe Sivam, which means Anbu Sivam, Anbu Sivam. If you take Sivam as a generic word for God, means love is God, okay, that sense. So it definitely has a transcendental dimension, though something like an institutional religion is not part of this discussion now. So thank you so much for all of these questions. And if we need some more clarity, yes.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Anybody else who would like to ask any questions? I think we are running short of time also. So now this is coming to an end. And I, Minati Pradhan, on behalf of Sadhyasa Chakra and the Vishwaneedam Center for Asian Blossoming, would like to thank our today's chief speaker, Professor Nirmal Selvamony. It is a pleasure to have you, sir, always in our webinar, and it's very wonderful to listen to you. It always opens up the new dimensions for us. Thank you so much. I will take a liberty to tell you in Tamil today, Ramba Nandri, sir. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
And